Welcome to another answering lore questions from the comments video. Rasmus Sletemo posted the question, how did Gandalf get his staff back, so after the events in Moria? In addition, I would like to add another question that I feel is fitting to this topic. Jeffer Adams asked, how powerful are the staffs of the Istari? Great questions for a shorter episode, but before we start, as always, I try to pronounce names as Tolkien described it, and of course, spoiler warning. First of all, what happens to Gandalf's staff in the Fellowship of the Ring? When he confronts the Balrog in Moria and speaks his famous words on the bridge of khazad-dum, he hits the ground with his staff. Here we have a small difference between books and films. In the books, his staff shatters while doing this, and in the films, he keeps it until he's pulled down by the whip of Durin's Bane, a bit hard to see. Then he grabs his powerful sword Galardriel during the fall, which I talk about in my weapons lore video in more detail, and fights the Balrog for 10 days from the lowest dungeons below the Misty Mountains to one of its peaks called Galardriel, or Silvertine, where he slew him but died in the process too. So the films are quite accurate about these events, except for the staff not breaking. Also, the books don't explain how he got his sword back. I assume he had it with him when he fell. After Gandalf died, his spirit probably went to Aman, the Undying Lands. I covered the topic of death in my last video. And then he was sent back, restoring him as Gandalf the White. With this, his form changed and he awoke naked where he once died on top of the mountain. Sounds quite cold. Being naked is probably a symbol to underline his rebirth as a, so to say, new Gandalf, like a newborn child. There, he had to wait for quite some time it seems, because in the books we can read, "There I lay, staring upward, while the stars wheeled over, and each day was as long as the life age of the earth." A quote we find in the films too, but there it always seemed to me that this was related to his journey after he died, not the time he waited on the mountaintop. But someday Gwaihir, the Wind Lord, flew over, sent by Galadriel, and rescued him. The Great Eagle also comments on Gandalf feeling weightless now. Together they flew to Caras Galadhon, so to say the capital of Lothlórien, where Galadriel and Celeborn lived. There he was clothed in white, and it can be assumed he got a new staff there. But why there? It's interesting that he goes to Galadriel, because she is one of 2 known elves in Middle-earth in the Third Age who have seen Aman, the Undying Lands, with their own eyes. Gandalf came from Aman, died, went back there, and returned again until he sails back. As a side note, this fits his character as traveler. However, it makes sense that the new Gandalf, who is much closer to his true form he had in Aman, goes to the place where he finds the only person who understands the place he came from, but also Middle-earth better than any other. He finds healing and counsel there, but also gives counsel. He describes in the dialogue where he explains his reappearance that in the lands of Galadriel, days give healing, not decay. It's like a place out of this world, and it probably tries to mimic the Undying Lands a bit, and it was also very close to Gandalf's position on the mountaintop. In this context, I also like the tone of Lothlórien in Peter Jackson's depiction, but the books describe it more golden with sunshine and not silver with moonlight. Both make sense as references to Laurelin and Telperion. See my tree lore video for more information on this topic. Also, Lórien, which means something like Lands of Dreams, is a place in Aman too, where the Valar of Visions and Dreams lives. So you could interpret Lothlórien as something like an interface, I don't have a better word, between both worlds, and of course Gandalf was rescued by its lady who sent Gwaihir, and of course it's here where he is clothed again and most likely gets a new staff for his task on Middle-earth. But what's the deal with the staff? From this short story we can make an interesting observation. Gandalf was able to fight a Balrog, who was also a powerful Maiar like himself and who wiped out an entire dwarf kingdom alone without his staff, which implies that he probably didn't need it to use his powers. But what is its purpose then, and why do all Istari have one? We also remember the scene where Saruman is confronted by Gandalf the White and the staff of the former leader of the Wizards shatters. What does this mean? My interpretation is that the staff is not a device for magic, but a symbol of their order, the Istari, and their authority as, so to say, ambassadors of Aman, where the high angels called Valar live. Breaking the staff of Saruman means revoking his authority and proclaiming his banishment from the order to the world. He is no longer an Istar, an ambassador of the Valar. It must also be considered that the symbol of the staff is very old in our world and can be interpreted as guidance, or in a religious sense even divine guidance, for example in Christianity. This fits to the Istari too. They are on a mission of the high powers of the world, and their purpose is to guide the peoples of Middle-earth on a narrow path to defeat Sauron. So this symbol seems quite fitting. But there is more. As mentioned, the Istari are Maiar, so powerful spirit beings of lower rank, comparable to angels. For the mission as Istari, however, they were not allowed to fully use their powers. The Valar wanted a more subtle approach compared to last time, when big parts of Middle-earth were destroyed due to their intervention and war against the first Dark Lord Morgoth. They should only give counsel and help to form a rebellion, not fight the war themselves. To execute this more subtle approach, they needed to change their form a bit. In the unfinished tales, we can read, "For they must be mighty, peers of Sauron, but must forgo might and clothe themselves in flesh, so as to treat on equality and win the trust of elves and men. But this would imperil them, dimming their wisdom and knowledge, and confusing them with fears, cares, and wearinesses coming from the flesh." Considering this, the staffs also had a practical purpose, to actually be walking sticks for them, because they were also old men and are often described as being bent by age and leaning on their staffs heavily. This would probably also generate the illusion of them being unimposing. Nobody would see them as a threat and expect that the power of demigods were residing in their bodies. Another little detail is that Gandalf was inspired by Odin, who was also a wanderer at times, who did great deeds similar to Gandalf. He was depicted with a wandering stick too. I said earlier that Lothlórien is something like an interface between both worlds, Middle-earth and Aman, so when the staff can be seen as a symbol of their authority, it makes sense that this place is where he gets a new one. So were the staffs powerful? Probably not in a classical or magical sense. The wizards could wield magic without them and only occasionally used them in supernatural ways, for example, to make light. But in the sense of having the authority of Aman, they were powerful, and they suited the great tasks of the Istari. In the end, Gandalf's actions led to the destruction of Sauron, who has terrorized Middle-earth for thousands of years, and his staff was part of it. Thank you for watching. I went a bit afield with this video, but tried to cover some interesting details surrounding the topic. We also got really close to the "Do Balrogs have rings?" question. I hope you liked it. If so, please feel free to press the like button and leave a comment or subscribe, and check the bell if you want notifications. This format is about answering selected lore questions from the comments, so post those too if you have questions. I also referenced some elements in this video I already explained in detail in other lore videos, in case you're interested. The two trees of Valinor, Laurelin and Tilperion, I have a video about them called "Why Do Elves Like Trees?" About death and the death of Gandalf, you find more details in the Deaths in Lord of the Rings video, but also in the Istari lore video. In the Lord of the Rings Most Powerful Weapons video, I talk a bit about Gandalf's sword Glamdring, and if you have a lot of time, I can recommend my Lore of the Elves from Círdan's Perspective video. Next in December will be most likely a gaming related video, also more of this answering questions format and letting you vote again. In addition, I want to make one classic lore video too, if possible. I hope I can finish it in time. In addition, I plan another difficult one that is not gaming or Lord of the Rings related. No clue how long it will be and when it will be done. The Films from the Books Perspective series will be continued too, but not sure when, probably next year. December is also the month of top lists videos, especially in gaming, and I have to admit that I like making them. Not sure if you would like to see a video like this, because there will be so many of them, but let me know, I read and answer almost everything. Again, thank you for watching. Have a nice and peaceful holiday season in case you watch this in December, and goodbye.